Welcome to another episode of Chad Sports Talk. As you know, my name's Chad. Take a dive on sports. And welcome to part 2 of my 3-part series in dealing with the fix of the FBS. My last video I did was my modest alterations to the FBS conference setup, adding teams up from the FCS to kind of facilitate some more talent being added. And when I made that, I was on the reception of certain schools or maintaining that, and I got called out for it. No biggie. I mean, I will admit that I was wrong in that aspect because I was actually assuming that certain things were as is, and we all know what happens when you assume. So just kind of give you some clarification, when I created the Big Ten or edited the Big Ten, I assumed Iowa State was still a AAU member. A viewer, Ethan Tolar, actually correctly pointed out they're no longer in it. They left actually this year. So there will be a change to that particular setup, but I won't do that till the next video when I start talking about my schedule, because NCAA is going to beat me to the punch what I was going to talk about. So pay attention to it next week, where I will actually discuss the new Big Ten as I see it, which means it's going to be changed to the Big 12 because Iowa State's going to go back, which means another conference is going to change. So I'll leave it there. But this one's my Extreme Makeover Edition of how I was going to change it, and it's one of these things where I changed the Power 5 to 14 members and the Group of 5 to 12 and leave the 3 independents, not calling anyone up. And this was something I was going to bring up earlier, and I recorded this video, and it was super long because I went more into different playoff situations afterwards, and I kind of went on a tangent. I mean, if you watch some of my videos, I do kind of do that a little bit. So instead of completely redoing, remaking everything, I'll kind of edit that previous video, and so you'll see the changes in the background and with what I'm wearing. But just realize this video was recorded about a month ago. I just didn't release it. I had it in my back pockets, like I'm going to put this out there, and just never did. So let's go ahead and just kind of throw it out there, and I'll make some edits and some tweaks in there to kind of shorten that particular bit up. We're diving all of that. If you could go ahead and smash that thumbs up for me, especially like the kind that provides. It really pleases YouTube God. It's really promote this channel out. So you go subscribe. Many of you watch my videos. I love you all for doing that. I mean, you subscribe because it doesn't cost you a dime. It helps me provide more entertainment value for you. Well, now I'll let you enjoy the video I kind of put down. I kind of created a month ago or so. So you see nice wardrobe change, background drop changes. And I kind of labeled this as my fix for the FBS before I came up with really a better idea how to fix it. This is, like I said, my Extreme Makeover. So enjoy this little stroll, and I'll see you on the other side of it. And I'll start with the ACC. As you know, the ACC is technically a 15-member conference. Yes, Notre Dame is technically in the ACC, except for 2 sports. That's hockey, which is in the Big Ten, the only conference to sponsor hockey. That's a different story. And football, where they maintain their independent status and their contract at NBC. Now, with this particular setup, the ACC, of course, stands for Atlantic Coast Conference. Most of their schools, most of the 13 of the 15, have a state that borders the Eastern Seaboard. Only 2 do not, and that is Notre Dame and Louisville. So this scenario, both schools will be out of the ACC, and then you'll bring it back up to 14, UCF. Now I think UCF will be a good addition because it'll split Florida into 3. So you get the Tallahassee in the north, close to the Panhandle, the Orlando right there in the central part, Miami, South Florida. UCF could fit right into that ACC conference race. Unless Clemson comes back to form, because right now the The 2021 season, you saw Wake Forest and Pitt dominate the ACC, with Clemson kind of hanging out in the background, struggling early, but then coming along strong at the end. So UCF didn't have that great of a year for themselves compared to some of the other years they've had, but this is not a program really count out. Florida State and Miami kind of shelved their former selves, so those will kind of give the ACC a little bit lift, a little bit with UCF, because Louisville's kind of tapered off as well. So I think that aspect kind of works out for them. And then we'll just move on over. And we'll go into Big Ten first, because Big Ten is another one of these conferences that doesn't really make any sense, going from the East Coast to the Great Plains. But I do understand that the Big Ten puts academia ahead of athletics, which each member school that joined was a member of the AAU, which is a prestigious organization of schools with academic excellence in mind. And there's a couple more schools in ACC that does that, a couple in SEC, and like half the Pac-12 does it. Rice is another one. So that's the first thing that the Big 12, or excuse me, the Big 10 looks at. But in my scenario, I kept majority of this conference together, with the exception of Nebraska. I'll go ahead and just jettison Nebraska and brought in Notre Dame. Me, as an Irish fan, have said for a very, very long time, Notre Dame belongs in the Big Ten. The Big Ten tried to court the Irish numerous times, and each time Notre Dame went, no, we're going independent. It's like when the Big Ten originally started the process of going to 12, when they brought in Penn State, they also courted Notre Dame. No, Notre Dame's not part of AAU, but the Big Ten was going to overlook that in their instance, because Notre Dame already has a high academic standard themselves, to bring in this blue blood football program into the midst, which they already have at that time frame. Bunch of games with the Big Ten members, including Michigan, Michigan State, and Purdue, which are big three rivals in the area. Not to mention the area has some rivalries with Northwestern, Ohio State, and also Penn State. So they can fit right in this aspect. And I've always said they always belong there. They don't belong in ACC. They don't belong in the Big East. They're always, for me, it was always the Big Ten. And so I'm going to put them back in there again. See some of my other videos, you see this before. And I would not change the name. But Chad, there's 14 members. You're right. There's also only 10 states. That's how they kind of work around that one. Now heading down south in SEC country, SEC will become the next super conference of Division 1A / FBS. Some of you all may remember the WAC tried this years ago, back in the early 90s. It didn't last very long, and the core members, the original OG members of the WAC, left to create the Mountain West along with UNLV. And SEC, what I would do with them is I would cut the 4 schools they got from the Big 12. Cut them out. You might be seeing a trend here. So, Mizzou, Oklahoma, Texas A&M are out. For me, I don't really see these guys as really SEC programs. They're more of like a Midwest, Southwest type of vibe to me. Plus, you get rid of some of the power programs that are in SEC, so now you concentrate more on like the Alabama, Georgia as your 2 main dogs, like Florida and Kentucky, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, possibly even LSU and Auburn being right there as the mid card, maybe surprising a team or 2. So I can really concentrate, the aspect of the SEC, and then I would bring in, to put them back up to 14, Louisville, the outcast from the ACC, bring that Commonwealth Cup in conference play. Louisville's right there, that mid-card football program, more the top end of the basketball program, really compete with Kentucky. That's we the 2 powerhouses in basketball, so that way Louisville's not, the oddball in the basketball program in the ACC. Now they're more of the top end in the SEC. And then I will bring in West Virginia. But I can also concede that you can switch West Virginia, say, with Virginia Tech. It really kind of concentrate that aspect and put West Virginia back into the fold of the rivalries with Pitt, Syracuse. But then you can still have that end of the year clash between Pitt, which doesn't happen anymore. We need to bring back the backyard brawl, and that was a great matchup between those two schools. Ever since they all gone their separate ways, doesn't exist anymore. I say, bring West Virginia SEC, could be the 14th member, you get that clash with Pitt at the end of the year. Same thing, you get Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Clemson, South Carolina. That'd be a great ACC, SEC bash at the end of the year. Everyone would be happy. Great ratings. You think about that. But, moving on. We went up to the Big 12. And with the Big 12, you already know that, West Virginia, UCF are gone. That's two of the most recent additions. I would also have BYU exit. You might guess that it brought in the 5 that have been kicked out of, or not really kicked out, but let go of the other conferences like Nebraska, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas A&M. Bring back the Big 12 to almost what they had prior. So we have the 11 of the original 12 members, and then of course, TCU, Houston, and Cincinnati, which would be Cincinnati would be the oddball in this scenario. I was thinking about maybe moving Houston out to reduce the number of Texas programs and bringing in Memphis, but I maintained what they originally were because I don't want to remove one that was in the Power 5 and just yank them out. So Cincinnati is going to be the oddball in this particular endeavor, and it's no fault of their own, really. It just happens where they've kind of landed. I think for Cincinnati being in the Big 12, they won't have the chance they will have when they will join the Big 12, because you still have Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M as your Big 3. But Cincinnati will find themselves a good mid-card position to possibly, make some unique changes. And, that's just kind of a little bit closer to what Morgantown would be. So, then they'll have the closest opponent will be Missouri and Iowa State. So, unfortunately, I get, the Big 12 logistically makes really not much sense, but it makes a little bit better sense since now you're not going from, Utah and Florida. Now you're kind of going from Cincinnati to Lubbock. So you're still in that nice little alleyway right there in the central part of the U.S. And with the Pac-12, you're just adding schools. Well, you probably guessed that BYU will be joining this conference, which they should. You will automatically compete for the Pac-12 title once they get in. Now, for the 14th member, this one's I battled back and forth which one to go. And previous videos I did, especially when I did my Almost Perfect 10, I went completely left field. I went with a dark horse. I went UNLV. Now, the reason why I picked UNLV at that time frame, and why I still kind of consider them now, is the fact that UNLV has the facilities. They play in Allegiant Stadium, brand new state-of-the-art stadium for the Las Vegas Raiders. You have T-Mobile Arena, the brand new arena that the Vegas Golden Knights play in. And the Pac-12 commissioner has ties to Las Vegas. They've already moved the Pac-12 championship game to Las Vegas. They've taken over the Las Vegas Bowl. They're moving the men's championship game to Las Vegas. So I figure, why not put the team in UNLV into the Pac-12, because you're already playing there. And I understand UNLV, academically, athletically, not on the same page at all. But in this scenario, I went with Boise State. Like I said, the OG BCS buster, they have to get in here. I'm sure they can, change the turf of the field, probably increase the stadium size, maybe start working on other academic-wise to really bring up their profile. But Boise State, they show up. I think they'd be right in the middle of the mix too for the Pac-12 title, unless USC starts spinning out the champions like of old, with Riley now as at the helm of their football program. But the group of 5, I took them down to maintain their level at 12. So it'll be some conferences moving up, some moving down the numbers. So I think it's just about the best way to kind of even them out. And I didn't really add any extra ones to this one. The independents are still here, but there's going to be a unique twist to them. And let's start off with the MAC. The MAC had 0 changes, none, nada. I don't think there's anything going on with the current setup that would really elevate the MAC at all. I think the only way the MAC could elevate themselves is to add like North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and go to 14 and go more west, snagging schools from the Missouri Valley. I think that's the only way the MAC can really elevate themselves to another level. I think every so often they'll get that great team like they did with Northern Illinois, Western Michigan, and Toledo. But I don't really see anything changing with MAC Nation at all. And then the Mountain West. With the Mountain West, you already know you lost Boise State, and they will also lose Air Force. We'll get to that in just a minute. But then, so that puts them down to 10. Okay, who do they add? Now they add New Mexico State and UTEP, who also are in the Mountain Time Zone, already have rivalries already in place with many of these schools. Plus, you're bringing that New Mexico State, New Mexico UTEP, New Mexico State rivalry. Those schools all pretty much hate each other, are right down that stretch of road. Bring those as conference games, and it'll be really great for those programs. But it will take the Mountain West down a few pegs because you lose Boise State and Air Force, 2 of your top programs. That means San Diego State, Fresno State, Utah State will have to carry the league, which won't be a problem for them at all, mind you. But they'll lose a little bit of prestige because of New Mexico State. But you're going to go up. Where did Air Force go? Well, I did something a little different with the military academies. As you already know, Army's already independent. Not associated with anyone else. They were at one point in time associated with Conference USA. And then they left that one. Air Force has been with the Mountain West for a number of years. The WAC before that. And then the Navy, just recently, not too long ago, joined the American Association to really help elevate their footprint. But I decided to take all three of these academies, all sister academies, and put them together. They all 3 play games together. They all play for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. So I decided that, well, since they already do that, let me go ahead and just put them in their own military football league as the independent schools. But it won't be associated with a conference. They don't have a conference title. They'll have the CIC trophy champion. So they'll have their own championship, basically, between them. And they'll still have their ties with their former conferences, like Air Force will have ties with the Mountain West to kind of help their schedule, and the Navy with the American, and the Army with Conference USA. Kind of fill in the gaps of what Notre Dame does right now with the ACC. They'll have like 5 games tied in with that conference. That way they can just rotate them and still maintain some of those rivalries they have there. So give each of these service academies 7 games locked every year, and they have to come with 5 different opponents. So I think that's feasible for them. I think all in all, that'll kind of help them out. And then with the Sun Belt, Sun Belt now is a 14-member conference. So to drop them down to 12, you looked at it, it's like, well, okay, so which 2 of the 4 new guys you will remove? And I only took 1 of the new guys. I took 2 schools that were it's a more regional aspect than anything else, and I took Arkansas State and Southern Miss. Took them out of the Sun Belt, so the Sun Belt what it was, which left Louisiana schools and Texas State kind of the outliers in this conference. It wasn't on purpose, mind you. It's just some of the things I was kind of looking at, who I'm going to help create a more regionalized kind of setup. And let's talk about more regionalized. If you understand the whole aspect with the current landscape, you look at the American, Sun Belt, and Conference USA, all 3 encompass the same region of the United States. It doesn't really make sense to have this, right? Especially current, what the Conference USA is going to end up going. Those 2 schools out there in the Mountain Time Zone playing against schools, FIU down there in South Florida, Liberty, Northern Virginia. And then you got New Mexico, Las Cruces, New Mexico, and El Paso, Texas. That makes no flipping sense. And the American, which has now gone more with their additions more into the central part next to their headquarters in Irving, Texas. So they're more Texas-oriented conference with the outliers out east. So I kind of did a little thing different. And with the American and Conference USA, I regionalized the two. I think it's the only way to really fix them, to really kind of help elevate their game per se, and really kind of help them with the money-wise. But the American, they still kept Temple, East Carolina, Charlotte, South Florida, and Florida Atlantic. Those are the only 5 that stayed put. And then I brought over the 2 other, the old remaining independent schools of UConn and UMass. So brought them in, brought back in UConn into the American. And then for Conference USA, I had them snag Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky, FIU, Liberty, and Jacksonville State. Now this will be a very unique aspect that I think with this particular setup. If you look at Western Kentucky, which had a very decent year last year, Middle Tennessee was all right. FAU, Liberty, and Jacksonville State is going to be, I think, will be a powerhouse in the Conference USA once it become eligible. So adding pretty much those Conference USA schools into this conference, those become your top schools. Temple still will be the only one left from the American that should have a decent chance. South Florida got wrecked their ship. UConn, UMass will bring this conference down back to earth. So now the other ones would be the quote unquote Conference USA. There's a reason why I said that. The only 2 that are left in this conference are Sam Houston and Louisiana Tech. So from the American, I'll bring in Tulsa, North Texas, SMU, UTSA, Rice, Tulane, Memphis, and UAB. And then from the Sun Belt, bringing up Arkansas State and Southern Miss. And then rebrand the Conference USA into the American West Conference. As a more regionalized type of conference, we have, I think, Memphis will be up there, UTSA, North Texas, SMU is definitely a good program. Arkansas State and Louisiana Tech are kind of flip-flop here so often. Sam Houston should be a decent program as well. So they'll give them a nice, good, foothold right there at southwestern part of the U.S. So I think that could really work between these guys in that aspect. So that way Army will still have tie-ins with this new conference. So they'll have the 5 games with these schools, because that's what they used to be, the old Conference USA. So yeah, I know I get a little bit long-winded sometimes, and I do apologize for that, but there were some thought processes I had when I created those 2 particular conferences at the time frame. I know some of the aspects of it, kind of regionalizing the American and Conference USA to what they were. I just find it really, really hard that 3 conferences encompass the same geographic area instead of trying to either merge and work together or actually separate into the particular zones. But, I left the Sun Belt as they were, but then just kind of did that with the American and Conference USA. So like I said, this entire scenario would not work at all. There's just too much involved in it, too much money in SEC. So you will never see, once schools get in SEC, they're not going to leave. That's plain and simple. You're not going to see a restructuring like you would with the American Conference today, combining and splitting again. That's not going to happen either. I mean, there's a few nuggets in there that possibly could. Doubt it, but like I said, this scenario is not feasible. And it's just a little fun little thought experiment kind of put together to kind of whet your appetite a little bit for get your juices flowing to kind of think of ways of how college football could have been, might be moving forward. As you know, I've come up with all sorts of scenarios. I've done my super leagues. I've done my perfect 10, which were all 14 members. 12 member conferences, 10 member conferences. So I've always thought about this one and looked at it and tried to formulate ideas how to go about this. But since I'm trying to do a fix for FBS, this is one of my fixes I came up with, but I know it's not feasible. So that's why I kind of threw it in here for fun, kind of let you guys kind of review it and kind of go, what is this guy thinking? Trust me, people still don't know. But that's going to lead me to the next video. I want to talk about the schedule, and then also make the corrections I have to do for my modest approach. So I'll put that together and get that out to you in the next video before I start going to the scheduling aspects. Thank you, Ethan, for that. Created more work for me. No, seriously, I really appreciate it. And when you guys actually interact and kind of bring up things like this, it lets me know that not everyone's perfect, and you have to learn to kind of accept when you're wrong and carry on. And that's the only way you can learn as a human being, and the only way you can really thrive as a channel here on YouTube. But like I said, I'll get that things fixed. I've already fixed it already on paper. I just got to turn around and make the graphics and put everything together for you on the next video I do. And with that being said, just let me know down below what you think of this extreme makeover. I understand, it's non-feasible, so I'm not going to, take it too hard on that aspect. But like I said, just a little fun there, and see what things, what conferences you think, probably be a better suit up or better alignment you think could have been better suited in these particular conferences. So let me know down below. Once you're there, once again, hit that thumbs up. You can also share the video with friends and family. Really helps promote this channel out. Once you subscribe, you hit that bell notification. Let you know next time I post a video. And I will see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.